Hello, my friend, and welcome to TFU.INFO News and Views, episode number 33. Once again, we are going to preview New York Toy Fair, this time for the year 2020.
Looking back, it's still a bit fuzzy.
Now, if you're familiar with our coverage of New York Toy Fair, then you know you're going to be along for a ride on Saturday, February 22nd, 2020. I will be in New York at the Hasbro Fan Media Event, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will be privy to all of the latest reveals from Hasbro, including all of their Transformers reveals. Of course, in the weeks and days leading up, I guess now just days left until New York Toy Fair, we're going to see a handful of official reveals at websites that we don't normally frequent, like Collider.com, who just had a whole big Cyberverse reveal, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I expect to see, Nerdist to do something about Studio Series or Earthrise, and who knows what other site. Wired?
Hey, why didn't you tell me the new issue of Weird was here? I love their hilarious send-ups of hit movies.
Dad, it's not...
Gigabytes! They've done it again. Gigabytes. Wait, this isn't Weird. Why, there's no magazine called Weird, is there?
Yahoo News?
The internet. Is that thing still around?
I know a website that shows monkeys doing it. Bart, the internet is more than a global pornography network. It's a...
Come on, Lisa! Monkeys!
I mean, we may even get something released by Alta Vista. So fire up your Netscape navigator and swing on by to youtube.com/TFU.INFO on Saturday, where I will be covering this event live. Let's talk a little bit about what we're expecting from Hasbro and the Transformers brand on Saturday. Of course, there are going to be Earthrise reveals, probably a lot of Wave 2. Some of the things we've heard rumors or seen some images of, just to keep this in mind, we'll probably see these all in person, are a deluxe RC and a deluxe Alicon, some new Battle Masters, Titan Scorponok, which got revealed during our New York Comic-Con coverage, Commander Class Skylynx, which I have a feeling is going to have the individual bird and lynx modes, and Leader Class Double Dealer. These are the ones that are strongly rumored. Some of these have had images associated with them, so I'm hoping to see those there, and hopefully we'll see those live in the showroom. Now, before I go any further into what else we might see, I want to break down a little bit about what happens at the Hasbro Fan Panel event at New York Toy Fair. Now, New York Toy Fair takes place at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in New York. That is the same place that hosts New York Comic-Con, and that is one of the largest convention centers, I guess, on the East Coast. It's definitely the largest one in New York, and that one is all the way on Manhattan's west side, on the river, overlooking New Jersey. Now, the Hasbro Fan Media Event does not take place there. So, things that happen at the main toy fair, the booths that are there, all of your big companies, Mattel and Playmates, and actually all of your small companies too, such as Super 7 and Funko and Jazzwares and Spin Masters and all these great toy brands that you've come to know and love over the years. They're all at the Javits Center. Hasbro does this thing at the Times Center, which is in Midtown Manhattan. It's also on the west side, near the Port Authority bus terminal. But we're talking from the end of the Javits Center, about 8 to 12 blocks plus 1 or 2 avenues. It's a hike from the actual New York Toy Fair, but it's not in the same building. That's the important thing to know. Now, this event starts in the afternoon. They usually let us in a few minutes early. We get our badges. We hang out and wait for the auditorium to open. The auditorium is on the main floor, and we go in there. We take our seats. It's theater style, and the Hasbro representatives give their presentations for whichever brand they are associated with. So we will see presentations for Transformers, and we will see presentations for Marvel and Star Wars and My Little Pony. Those have been the traditional ones over the years. Last year, they added in Power Rangers, and This year, they're adding in potentially Ghostbusters and G.I. Joe back to the mix. They used to do G.I. Joe every year. So that said, there is a lot of ground to cover, usually in about an hour and 15 minutes. Then they take a minute, let us gather into our groups, and then release us to the downstairs showroom area where they have all of the toys on display in various sections, a Transformers section, a Marvel section, a Star Wars section, etc. And a whole bunch of things that they probably didn't mention in these presentations. Things like Rescue Bots will probably be down there, and Hasbro Gaming and Nerf and all sorts of things like that. That's how the day breaks down. So that's how we'll end up finding out about things. There'll be about an hour, 15 minutes of just straight out reveals and commentary. www.twitter.com/TFU_info or at TFU_info on your Twitter app. And then we'll hit the showroom and talk to the Hasbro reps. We'll be doing all sorts of things downstairs. Keep an eye on the Twitter, as I mentioned, and keep an eye on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/TFU.INFO. So in previous years, they've had a whole bunch of other things on display that they didn't necessarily announce in the panel. So we're likely to see some Masterpiece down there. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Masterpieces 50 and 51, Tigatron and RC. By the way, all the commentary I've heard about Tigatron and RC on various podcasts, not one person has mentioned that they were both of the exclusives at BotCon 2001. Now, other reveals we're expecting to see, some of these have kind of leaked out a little bit from Studio Series. We're going to see most likely Studio Series Sentinel Prime, Off-Road Bumblebee, as seen in the Bumblebee film. That's his Jeep mode. Roadbuster, one of the wreckers, and Shatter in her jet mode. We also will probably see Devastator fully combined and in person. That's what I'm hoping for. Along with the final Constructicon we haven't really seen, it, Skipjack. Now, as I mentioned, Collider had a whole bunch of Cyberverse reveals the other day, including a new trailer, which I'm expecting to see at this event, along with a whole bunch more deluxes, and there was some artwork shown, so I'm hoping to see new figures there. Oh, man. You know, the Cyberverse line, I'm just going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. I picked up a few Cyberverse figures here in Florida where they're a bit cheaper, and then found a Walmart where they were just trying to get rid of them at about $8 each, and those are the, I guess, the Warrior class figures. And for $12, I can see, yeah, they're a little pricey. For $8, that is a good price for toys that are a heck of a lot of fun. That Gnaw figure is ridiculous amounts of silly fun with his gimmick of his upper body spinning, and the Jetfire figure is way nicer than it has any right to be. Also on display, though I usually sneak around to it at some point, is Rescue Bots. And another thing here, I've never watched Rescue Bots up until recently. And the reason I'm watching it now is one of my favorite Transformers podcasts, hosted by my friends Jen, Rob, and David over at Stasis Pod Podcast, are now onto covering Rescue Bots Season 1, which is available on Tubi, which is an amazing app. If you like your Transformers cartoons, it has just about every series from G1 through the end of Prime, with the exception of the original Robots in Disguise series. So if you need to catch up on your Transformers cartoons, that's the way to do it. And it does at least have Season 1 of Rescue Bots, which I'm watching, and I am surprised at how much I really enjoy this one. I thought it was going to be aimed a bit too young for me and to really enjoy, and it's aimed young, I'm not going to lie, but it is super, super fun. And that podcast, also a lot of fun now that they're covering Rescue Bots. So make sure you check them out, too. And, you know, one last thing that's been happening at this Hasbro event in recent years, in coordination with Hasbro Pulse being a thing. And I don't know if you got your Pulse premium membership extended another 6 months, but I know I did for free because Hasbro clearly wants us to keep using Pulse. Is the See Now, Buy Now toys and items they put up for all of their lines. on this magical Saturday of the Hasbro Fan Media Event. So keep an eye out for that. I expect at least one Transformers Generations Selects figure to show up. Maybe we'll get some announcements of that. Maybe we'll get to see the Seacons in person on the floor. I don't know why they would have them there, but it'd be neat to see if they're just there to show off, like, look, we did this. And of course, like I said, there's going to be other Hasbro brands on hand. Of course, Star Wars and Marvel and Power Rangers. The big ones to me are Ghostbusters and G.I. Joe. Not so much that I love Ghostbusters, because I'm not really a huge fan. I don't dislike them. It never really got me like it did other people of my generation. I just like the fact that Hasbro will be making their toys, especially for the next film. But the G.I. Joe stuff being there, that is going to be awesome. I am really looking forward to this. If you haven't heard, news has leaked over the last month or so that Hasbro is doing a 6-inch G.I. Joe line. And the other news that has leaked is that Hasbro may be doing a collaboration with Jazzwares to do a G.I. Joe 3 3/4-inch line. Now, Jazzwares, if you haven't seen, has done the 3 3/4-inch Fortnite figures. They haven't done the 6-inch Fortnite figures. That is McFarlane Toys. But the 3 3/4-inch figures, which are really cool looking, really well designed, a little pricey at $12, but I've been finding some of them on clearance and picking them up just to kind of get a feel for what the Joe line's going to be. And I got to say, they're really nice. They're really well done. They're actually much better than the Spin Masters 3 3/4-inch DC figures I've been seeing. Even though those have some really nice designs, they're fairly limited in their articulation. The Jazzwares figures are not. The only flaw in those Jazzwares figures is the placement of the hole in their foot to peg them onto things. It's a little far forward, which makes it hard to balance them even when they're pegged in. Other than that, those toys are pretty close to flawless in terms of being 3 3/4-inch figures. And speaking of other companies, the ones that will be over at the Javits Center opens up pretty early in the morning on that Saturday, and I will be there with my press badge. I already got a few interviews lined up, including the aforementioned Jazzwares. I got something in the works also with McFarlane Toys. Hoping to get in there to see the Bloodshot figure from the Bloodshot film. You know how much I love my Valiant comics. And we're hoping to get some inside scoop on that toy line. And the Jazzwares folks, who knows, they might have some Joe stuff on hand over there. It makes me wonder if Hasbro might enter a deal with them to do more in 3 3/4-inch figures, especially with a company like Spin Masters doing more 3 3/4-inch, and Super 7 doing more 3 3/4-inch, and NECA doing 3 3/4-inch. Like, everyone's doing it. I would like to see Hasbro maybe venture, and who knows, with this G.I. Joe relaunch, if Hasbro's doing their own 3 3/4-inch figures, and maybe this whole Jazzwares rumor is just a rumor, it might lead them to do what I would really hope to see is more Marvel 3 3/4-inch figures. I loved the old Marvel Universe and Marvel Infinite lines, and I would love to see Hasbro bring those back. So who knows? There'll also be a Super 7 booth at the Javits Center. I will check that out along with all sorts of other cool stuff that I find. Basically going to have to go straight there, do a run-through, go to my one scheduled walkthrough with Jazzwares, do another quick run-through, go to hopefully my other scheduled walkthrough with McFarlane, and then race around for another hour or so, and then shoot uptown to the Hasbro event. But that's it. There's going to be a lot going on. Plus, I got a 10-minute sit-down with John Warden and Ben Montano, as usual, at the Hasbro event. So if you have questions for them, you need to hit me up. People on the Patreon, this is your chance, because I will put your questions first. If you're part of the Patreon, patreon.com/TFU.INFO, patreon.com/TFU.INFO. For as little as $1 a month, you get inside access to the show and all sorts of goodies. You get the shows a day in advance, and this time, this is one of those perks. If you're one of my patrons, write me on Patreon where I post this episode. Give me your questions, and I will put them at the top of the list, as long as they're not ridiculous. I do have to show a little bit of journalistic integrity, but I will tell you in the comments if I can use them. But your questions will at least get first consideration going to New York Toy Fair. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up for this New York Toy Fair preview. Again, if you want to catch all of our New York Toy Fair coverage, 2 places you need to be are Twitter and YouTube. Twitter account is at TFU_info. That's where all the live coverage will be going out during the Hasbro presentation, where we can't take photos, and then from the floor where we can take photos. I will have Miguel from Steel City Bots with me. He will be taking over the Twitter on the second half of the event. And then during that portion of the event, I will be manning the camera and taking you live around the showroom on YouTube, youtube.com/TFU.INFO. If you haven't subscribed, do so. Subscribe, ring the bell. This way you get an alert as soon as I go live. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of TFU News and Views. Once again, I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.info. Until New York Toy Fair 2020. See you.